Is it okay to plant bulbs in January? And if you do, will they still flower? Have you got some left over that you haven't planted yet and you're wondering should you? Or have you got some on sale from a store like Wilko's? They used to look after us, RIP Wilko's, gone but never forgotten. But yeah, should you still be planting them? The short answer is yes, you can plant bulbs in January, but if you want to get my watch time up, carry on as I show you photos from previous years of flowers from the bulbs that I've planted in either late December or early January, so that you can see how they do, how they flower. Do they flower earlier? Do they flower later? Do they flower as well as? So yeah, let's have a look at the photos together. But before we go into it, remember, bulbs are always better in the ground than dumped in your shed. I'm not being rude, I've got my phone, I've got the data, aka videos of me planting, the dates, and then also the photos of those bulbs flowering. On the 30th of December 2021, I started planting bulbs, and that went into the first week of January, and I planted tulips, crocus, alliums, snakehead fritillaries and daffodils. So the first ones to flower were the crocus. They flowered along here on the grass, and then they also flowered a little bit after on here. The crocus along here flowered on the 9th of March. They looked vibrant, they looked amazing. The ones here were a little bit after on the 17th of March, and they were all planted in the beginning of January. This similar photo here shows those same crocus the next year flowering on the 20th of February, just under a month earlier than the previous year, which shows that if I probably would have planted them earlier, they would have come earlier. But we still got amazing flowers that the bees loved, and they brightened up the garden. So who cares, they still look great. So next, in the same border, we had Winston Churchill daffodils, which looked amazing, and they flowered on the 14th of April. Now, the following year, they flowered on the 23rd of April. And I think that's because we had a bad sort of April last year, and so they were a little bit further behind. Tulips, which a lot of people leave a little bit later than daffodils and crocus anyway, because of the possibility of tulip fire. They flowered in this border here on the 20th of April. And then again on the 26th we had the purple ones, and we also on the 4th of May had yellow daffodils in here as well. But again, we had loads of flowers and the bees loved them. I took loads of footage of them, lots of pictures. They looked great, maybe a little bit later than what they would have been, but still looked amazing. Alliums, which I absolutely love, may I add, and they started to open up on the 9th of May, and then we're flowering by the 13th of May to the 21st of May. They start to get those little green pods, which you'll know if you've grown them before. But yeah, they looked absolutely incredible. I got loads of good footage of them. Now, those same alliums were flowering around the same time the next year, the 21st of May. I've got a photo, the exact same sort of dates. Maybe a little bit further behind than the year before, which is interesting. Again, that April last year was a little bit bad. So if you plant alliums now, they will definitely flower. The next growing season, I got back out in the garden. I started on the 30th of December. Again, I don't know what it is about that date. And then I've also got a photo of me on the 6th of January when I continued planting. So yeah, you can see how late I sort of left some of these. That was for a video that I did where I was testing out different bulb planting tools. So I'll link that in bio, just in case you want to watch that one as well. Just here, we planted loads of tulips, which I'll put some footage here of me planting tulips. That was on the 30th of December I planted those, and basically I will show you a photo here, and they flowered on the 10th of May and they looked amazing. I did like purple ones with like some white with the green going through. They looked incredible. So if you look at, so 20th of April for my tulips the year before, so 10th of May. So you can see that those tulips were a little bit behind. That's sunnier as well, so you can see that actually the spring flowers last year were behind the ones the year before, because I am planting them around the same time, The ones that sort of came back and had already been in the ground, they were around about the same time. So I think if we would have had the same weather, they'd have been earlier, and I think obviously they would have been about the same time as those ones over there. We also planted here Imperialis fritillarius. I say it differently every time I say it. Imperial fritillaries, however you want to say. They looked incredible. They were planted very much smelling of weed, if you know, you know. And they were planted in the beginning of January, I can remember, and they flowered on the 23rd of April. So yeah, another example of bulbs flowering the same year that you plant them in the January. We also had some massive alliums which looked incredible. They were a little bit later, 9th of June. I had to plant them deeper as well, bigger bulbs. But again, they looked incredible. And then we also had on the 7th of May these pink daffodils in the border over there where we had the red and yellow tulips, which is a bit shadier, and they were on the 7th of May, which is really interesting because on the 4th of May the previous year we had those yellow daffodils being planted and then coming there, so a few days before. Is it okay to plant bulbs in January? The answer is a resounding yes, because I've always planted mine towards the end of December into that first week of January, just because of timings, things going off in my life. I think I love the sort of feeling of getting out after Christmas into that sort of new year, planting them, and it really is a sense of sort of hope and yearning to see those flowers. Obviously if you do get them in earlier, they will appear earlier, the flowers will, which is great, by the way, for bees and pollinators and stuff like that, because spring bulbs are really crucial for our pollinators. So it is good to have some in the ground from previous years to help those pollinators if you are a little bit late planting. But yeah, no, I've only ever had success when I planted my bulbs in late December and into January. I've had one example of where the bulb didn't turn up, arrive, and that was snakehead fritillaries. They did not appear. Whether that is because they didn't like where I put them or whatever, I do not know, but I did plant some snakehead fritillaries last January and I never saw them. So yeah, maybe that, you guys tell me, have you ever planted snakehead fritillaries late? Have you had issues with growing them? But guys, let me know your experiences when growing spring bulbs and if you've planted them late and how they've turned out. I am in Zone 9A for anyone who isn't in the UK, and I always get asked that question online, so I always remember I'm in Zone 9A. In the UK we don't necessarily take as much notice of zones because of how sort of similar a lot of our growing areas are at times. Let me know your thoughts and experiences. I'd love to hear them. If you can like and subscribe, that would be amazing, but more importantly, look after yourselves, and I'll catch you on the next one.